Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We are starting our webinar today on estate planning. My guest is Mrs. Shalonda Ajibola. She is a licensed attorney. She's the owner of Kingdom Law and Justice, um, and licensed in both Missouri and Texas. And it's been a good series, and I hope people that you can find the recordings on our social media, on our website. Not on the website. You can find it on Facebook, on our Facebook page, um, Community Outreach Partners for Empowerment, and just get all from the different information that Shalonda has shared. And this is the final session today. So again, we encourage you to ask your questions, to join us, even if you are watching this after we have recorded it. Then you can still put your comments on Facebook, and we will see those and try to answer the questions that you might have. And so, Shalonda, we'll pass it over to you.
Well, happy Saturday. I first want to thank Mrs. Adeyu. Ooh, Lord, I'm messing up.
Adebi.
Adebi, for the opportunity to assist hopefully the future and considering patrons of COPE, Community Outreach Partners for Empowerment. Also want to state again that I am a board member of COPE, and I'm excited to see what is in the future for the organization, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity that and the intentionality of ensuring and making sure that the community are informed with information that will be helpful, not just helpful, but with the focus on helping empowering families. And I believe that is part of the mission of COPE. So I'm happy and proud to be a part of fulfilling that mission. So yes, this is part 3 of a 3-part training series, estate planning. The very first installment, that was a couple months back, we talked about death and money, navigating the emotional triggers in the Black and Brown community. And I set this series up into 3 parts. And so, like I said, the first one was talking about the triggers, and this basically, in essence, was trying to figure out what are the hindrances, what are the hurdles, what is preventing us from getting this done. And what's interesting, I'll take a little sidebar here. I was speaking with a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, one of those organizations, and he had mentioned that the reason why we may be having a lot of more difficulty is because our counterparts have gotten a head start. So I think he mentioned we are the first generation, I guess maybe Joanna and I probably around the first generation to have been born, I guess, after the Civil Rights Movement. So if you imagine what our past has been, it's been just making it, just that the kind of survival. And whereas our I guess I shouldn't say counterparts, but our Caucasian brothers and sisters have kind of basically had a head start, so they've already been doing this thing of estate planning, passing on wealth and things like that. So that's why, and I don't want to generalize because it's not everybody, but generally you have a culture of people that this is what they do. It's not even a question. Their parents have will. They leaving property. They're leaving acres. My husband's a friend of his, the man recently died. The father recently died. He had acres and they had a will. And they were split it 3 times. Of course, I've had clients where there's property. It's not just the primary property, but it's a rental. It's like an extra property, a lake house or something like that. So this is already a way of life. And so that was kind of part of my discovery in this journey was, what is it that is hindering us? And I think when he mentioned that, I'm like, you know what, that holds true. I think a lot of that is because we have been a people that's gone through so much just in this country, but I guess what I'm saying is we are now that generation. Okay, we are the and forgive me for using some biblical terms, but what they call the Joshua generation. we are our generation before us, and not to get too politically off thing, but we had a certain president, and the time was it was kind of looked at as Moses, and coming out of well, I guess Martin Luther King was kind of our Moses. But coming out of, the civil rights movement, stepping into freedom. So you in essence could say our previous generation came out, okay? They came out and stepped into freedoms. So now we are that generation. We are now being grown up in freedoms, and much more, we have to admit, much more liberty and access to opportunities than our ancestors. Okay. So I guess, and that's what we're saying, we really at this juncture, we can afford to not take heed, to not, there are so many more opportunities. Generation before us didn't have property to pass on. They couldn't do certain things. There was issues with the life insurance. So, but we have a lot more freedoms than our ancestors. Okay. And different ones, and even I talk about the brown community, and whether those are immigrants. And if you're second generation, you've been here. So yes, maybe the generation before you obviously struggled and probably weren't in the best situation to get these things in order. But now, if you've been here, you're a generation removed. That's why I'm, I guess, encouraging us in that generation. And so, but asking you also to be an influence to your parents who may still be in that, hey, I'm just trying to make it. I'm just happy to be alive. But make sure your parents, and then make sure you and your children are settled. Okay. So that's the encouragement there. And so the second installment was talking about failure to plan. And like I said, I'm giving my own testimony per se, is that my dad passed without a will, and I'm an attorney. Okay. So it's not that I'm just coming to you, not coming in kind of you need to, but I'm saying it from my own experience. We've experienced this. So I'm coming from experience of having a dad, having a loved one, going through this process, and not necessarily having things in place. Like I said, thankfully, him and my mom were on the same different accounts and things like that. So it was seamless for her. But I guess I feel compelled to make sure people are prepared since I've gone through it. And so like I said, we discussed about what happens, things you might run into or things you might experience when a loved one or when someone passes without a will. You might have to go through probate. There are some things to do outside of probate. And what I said last time, that I will talk about a few of those things today, but there are things you can pass, assets you can pass outside of probate. But if it depending on a dollar amount, and then of course we're talking about, and I'm of course generalizing because different states have different rules. So, but there is kind of a threshold dollar amount that will require you, depending on how much is your total asset amount, you will have to go through probate. But so transfer assets, and this is just a few of examples. And generally, transfer assets without going through probate. So one of the most common ones is life insurance. And I'm just going to run through these, but kind of give you a reason why. Because you might say, okay, Shalana, what is this whole probate thing? I wasn't at the last one. And, what's the big deal? So life insurance, retirement accounts, just those examples. And then a bank account. I've talked about a transfer on deed form for a bank account. Those are assets or things that you may have accounts based on contract. So you, the customer, like I said, if it's Liberty Mutual, is it Transamerica, Prime America, you are paying premiums for, and you're making those monthly premiums, annual premiums based on a contract. You have a contract with that company that as you're making those premiums, investing in that financial product. And then what they're agreeing to do, they are promising to do by contract, is to make that payout. Okay. So you have that policy limit. You have a 6-figure limit. Some of even available, you might be surprised, of a $1 million policy limit. So, but that's based on contract. And so the same when it comes talks about a retirement account. We talk about the IRA, that's the individual retirement account. And there's a Roth, and I want to get all into the details. Definitely encourage people to get uh, in contact with a financial advisor, talk with someone, talk with the HR at your job to really discuss and kind of get a better understanding of what's going on. Sometimes we can go to a job and just fill out documents and we don't even know what we don't even know what we're signing. So, but if you notice in those different documents, and even because sometimes through your job, they will even offer you maybe like a minimum life insurance policy, but it's just as long as you're working for that company. Now, also note that you can get a policy outside of your company. You're not dependent. And that's the same with the retirement account. You can get an retirement account with your the company that you work for, but then you can also have your own personal, whether it's through your bank or you maybe go through Fidelity. And please, none of these companies are endorsing me. I mean, I would love to get a check from them, but I'm not, what am I saying? I'm not endorsing any of them. They're not paying me a check, but maybe one day they will. But so the thing is, you're not necessarily limited to your job. And that's key. Please hear me. That's key, because the way our economy is, I would say since 2010, just with the jobs and I'm just making it plain. And I know some of you have been out there. If you've been out there in the workforce, and things are different. Our parents, like my mom, worked for the USDA over 30 years. That typical, not saying it can't be done, but the typical, you go have a job and work there for 30, 40 years and retire, and get all your benefits, get your retirement, get your pension, get all these things, and move on and enjoy, life and, live happily ever after. That's not necessarily the case today. There are a lot of things where having multiple jobs and just a different, it's just a different work industry right now. So it might be prudent to have an account. I would say life insurance, because this is what you don't want to happen, is to be investing in a life insurance policy, and then that job, say you're only there 3 years, maybe you get laid off, maybe the job shuts down, maybe there's just a break in employment, and then what has happened to that life insurance policy? And then maybe you were in good health when you started the job, but then maybe 3 years later, maybe you have some kind of illness, and so then now your life insurance policy premiums may be higher. So, but the thing is, it just may be prudent to have, in addition, not necessarily saying you have to substitute and don't take what the job offers, because especially if they're paying, there's some retirement accounts where the job will match or they'll help, separate health insurance as a whole other thing. But you want to make sure you have some of your own stuff, okay? The other, and I'll kind of jump to the last one, transfer on, I have deed on here. It should be death. Sorry. Transfer on death form from the bank. And basically they're saying that, say you pass and you have $16,000 in the bank. What do what do we do with this money? Who do we give it to? So there's a form that the bank should have where you can designate who will get access to those funds upon your passing. And I want to mention there's another document, because I know I had one working for the government, that your paycheck, say your last pay, say you pass in the middle of a pay period. And so there's a form to them to also for you to designate who you want to get that last paycheck. Because, you're still old. Just because you pass doesn't mean that the job get to keep your money. So, if you work maybe the first week, halfway through the pay period, then yeah, you were due that portion of what you worked. So that paycheck. So then you can designate. And that's the thing about it. When you designate, when you're filling out these accounts, you're filling out the paperwork for the life insurance, you're filling out the paperwork for the retirement account, filling out the paperwork for the bank account, you are then given the opportunity to designate who you want. Now, one thing I'll mention in regards to the document with your last paycheck is because this I know with I'm working for SBA, and it was a document. So there's a federal government Small Business Administration. There was a document that I could designate for my last paycheck, but they did have that in case I did not designate anyone, that they already had their order of who they were going to send the money to. Okay. And so that may be a possibility for some of these other organizations, these other companies. But the thing is, you don't know necessarily how they're processed. And I don't think each of them may have a little slight variation on how they handle when it comes to the payout. Okay. So, because other thing I wanted to mention is because I did have a client one time that his wife had like a small life benefit, I think through Aflac. But the thing is, she hadn't designated anyone, and yet she'd been married. The thing is, more than likely, she got that before she got married. So that's why I'm bringing these things up. These are things you probably forgot about. Say you've been on your job 15, 20 years, and who you wrote down, think about it, who you wrote down 15, 20 years. You may not even be married. You probably was single, or maybe some of you was married and you've divorced and remarried. So you want to go back and look at these. Who do I have written down? Who are my designated beneficiaries? But in essence, what I'm saying, these are by contract. So that means it does not have to go through probate because this is an agreement. It's a contractual agreement between you and the company. Like I said, whether it's Liberty Mutual, whether it's Aflac, whether it's Primerica, whether it's Transamerica or something like that, whoever is the holder, the company of these funds, okay? And so another document, another way to pass property without going through probate is when it comes to your primary residence, okay? And then this may be different in different states. I can really speak for them. It's from Missouri and Texas, but there is at least a document for Texas is a transferred on death deed, and a document for Missouri is beneficiary deed. And this is a deed. Basically, you designate upon I'm the owner of 621 Crest Drive Parkway, Kansas City, Missouri. And of course, you have the legal description. And upon my death, my 3 children, Joe, John, and Sue Abernathy, I'm transferring this house to them upon my death. Okay. And then that document, that deed is then filed in with the recorder of deeds, just as you would file or record any other deed. Okay. But the thing is, when you pass, then the beneficiary, or whether it's the attorney or something, they would then prepare an affidavit, some kind of document, an affidavit stating, you referring back to the beneficiary deed, the transfer and death deed, and then you're acknowledging when the person passed, and maybe even refer to a death certificate. And so you're basically kind of you're putting on notice, letting the world know, okay, the event has occurred. The triggering event of mama passing, or whoever that's the grantor of the property, the owner of the property, has passed. And so now the people that he or she had written in this deed are now the owners. Okay. So those are ways that you can pass assets without going through probate. Okay. I'm sorry, I just ran right into so those are, because we were talking about probate and failure to plan. But a good segue is, because what I said with the last one, this is the meat. But the ultimate goal and the objective of this training series is to encourage you. I'm coming to you as a coach. And I think if we can reframe this estate planning process and thinking to, what are we doing? We are leaving a legacy and building generational wealth. And so there's a way. And so you might say, okay, yeah, Shalonda, I'm interested in that. That sounds good. And that's what I want to do. So how do I do that? It is through creating an estate plan. The thing is, you can go out there and be a boss, and you're racking up this, racking up that, and you making money. You're doing movies. You're doing, you got merch. You got, all these great things. You've built these companies. You've established. You've got a huge real estate portfolio. But if you have not secured a transfer, if you not plan a transfer of that property, what have you done? Your labor is then left to what? Okay, so this is a way to ensure the transfer of those assets so that your wealth, everything that you've been working hard for, that you've been grinding and hustling and working for, can be transferred to the next generation. Okay, your children, your spouse, whoever that may be. And I was just thinking about this earlier. For those of you, you may say, Shalonda, talk about spouse and talk about children. I don't have no kids and I don't have no spouse. You can still create a legacy by maybe designating maybe there's a charity, maybe there's your alma mater, your school, your college. So there are other ways that you can leave a legacy without necessarily having children. Okay, say you've accumulated a decent amount of wealth and you want to do something. You're like, what do I do with this? I don't sound like Abraham. I don't have any heirs, Lord. So you may decide that, okay, upon my passing, I want to build a school. Maybe I want to build a school here. I want to build a wing onto the school that I went to. I want to set up a scholarship fund, maybe to the school I went to, so that other people that maybe was in my similar situation can go to college tuition free. Okay, you might want to do something international. You want to build orphanages. You want to set up schools over there. You want to build housing. So there are other ways. And then maybe you say, hey, I don't even want to get into the weeds of trying to create a program. There's a charity organization that I already like that I just want to give them the money and let them continue to do what they've been doing. That's can be done as well. Okay. So that's part of this, or part of it. There's objective, like I said, the objective and the goal of this training series is to reframe, to get us from thinking trauma, survival, thinking, oh, we just made it, we just making it day by day, to let's start thinking about leaving a legacy. How can we talk about securing a bag, but how can we make sure the bag is set up, for the people coming after us? The thing is, we don't want each generation to have to start over. That's what's been happening, and we got to stop that trend. The reason why, I would say one of the reasons why there is a wealth gap in the U.S. between the Black and brown, and probably more the Black and brown and our Caucasian brothers and sisters, is we're having to keep restarting each generation. And I'm just saying that's just one aspect. But when you have the luxury of passing on, when you think about it, a child has been born and is reaping the harvest of their grandfather, okay, or great grandfather. You have the stuff that's been passed down. So think about when something is rolling downhill, and that might be a bad analogy, but when something is rolling, it grows, it builds momentum. So when John Smith is born, they're not just born fresh out. They're born standing on the shoulders of their dad, their granddad, their great granddad. Okay. They've been equipped. And this is not across the board, but these are, people that have been laying up. Even the word says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So the thing is, if we want to close the wealth gap, we have to ensure that what we're doing now, do it and do it well, but be mindful of the next generation. And not only the next, but the second and third generation. Okay. Let's be thinking long term. Let's play the long game in this. Okay. Wealth is a long game. Okay. Even if you have an overnight success, how quickly, what I'm saying? How quick you have to do something, have a long-term plan in order to maintain that wealth long-term. Okay. Okay, John, if we can go to the next slide. So this is the meat of, you're asking, Shalonda, okay, I hear what you're saying. It sounds good, but how do I do this? What do I need? You've been leading up, talking all this other stuff about emotions and probate and things like that. How do we get started? How do we get this estate plan? Okay. These are some of the essential documents of an estate plan. I'm not saying they're all the all-encompassing, but these are some of the essential documents. And so these are going to include regarding assets, and also, but you as physical person, your body. your health. Okay. So we start with one of the most common one, of course, is a will. A will is what it is your desire for what you want to happen to your assets, what you want to give to who. Okay. So what you do, you can set up an executor, you can designate someone. And like I said, as we go through these documents, I want you to be mindful, be thinking in your head, who is somebody that I can trust? Who is someone that is smart in regards to not just education wise, but smart in figuring things out and investigating and researching? Who is somebody that I would trust their decision making? So you want somebody to make good decision makers, somebody who can handle, not easily influenced, but can handle your estate, handle your affairs. Okay. So because you're going to want them, this executor is going to be paying off your debts, but also ensuring your wishes are fulfilled. So if you designated and said, I want Johnny to have my 1952 Cadillac, okay, they will ensure that those things are carried out. Your wishes are carried out. Okay, so that's the most essence thing. And as I said last training session, that you will have to go through probate with that. Okay, to get the documentation that the executor needs. You'll need an attorney to do that as well. Okay, so another document that you can have is a living trust, and this can be revocable or irrevocable. Revocable meaning you can change your mind. Now, irrevocable means that once you've done, you sign and it's dated, the ink is dried, and that's it. There's no changing, no going back. Okay. So and what generally happens, so living trust is because you're doing it while you're alive. So it's a trust that you establish, that you set up while you are alive. And generally what you're making yourself initially the trustee of that trust and giving yourself different powers and authorities to do certain things, because of course it's handling your assets. And what you generally would do for the assets that you currently have, which could be your house and some other things like that, you would retitle them into the name of the trust of John Smith, or John Smith Living Trust, something of that nature. Okay. And so, but the thing is, you would retitle the assets that you already have that you want to put in the trust, but also when you acquire additional assets, then you would put them not necessarily in your name, but the name of the trust. Because the thing is, the living trust, the attorney, for example, someone like me would draft the trust document, but it has to be funded. Otherwise, it's just a blank sheet of paper. Okay, it's a sheet with no power. So those trusts have to be funded. So that's another encouragement to you, if you don't, to get a financial advisor if you don't have one, but at least looking into some things. If you might be financially savvy, but that's another thing I think it could be lacking in some of our communities is adequate financial education. And once again, coming from that survival mentality and just making it, living paycheck to paycheck. But I believe sometimes in order for us to get to where we want to get to, which is I think some of that's kind of short-sighted. You're just making it. So you're like, I haven't even thought about next month, let alone you talking about my kids. So, but I think that's what my hope is this is to encourage you. And I think once you start thinking about the future, you start making the adjustments to your current present situation. Okay. So there might be some decisions you might make differently if you're thinking about your children's children. All right. And so, but also in that trust, you would, of course, set it up that upon your passing, you would designate someone to be the trustee to handle and the administration of the trust and to distribute the different assets as you require. But also the trust gives you an opportunity to have a little bit more control. I mean, there are things you can designate that you can write in your will, but a trust does kind of give you the opportunity to be very detailed. Say you have a son, you have a business, and you say your son's a minor, but then you pass before they turn 21, and you designate, I want my son, Alex Baldwin, to take over and become CEO of the business, ABC Corporation. when he reaches 21. So as long as he has completed, a bachelor, at least a bachelor's degree at a university, and say if he does X, Y, Z, if he gets a DUI, if he gets into this, or he goes off and go off the rails or drops out of school, then he forfeits, basically this right to become CEO. And in that case, I want my daughter to become CEO. So those are things where you can set up those things and those basic stipulations, criteria, conditions for different things in your will. Because you're thinking about something, think about something you labored. You built a business, you built something, say some additional property, some vacation property. We may just started out as an Airbnb, but then it ballooned into something. Now it's a resort, and it's pulling in some serious millions. Okay. So you want to make sure that's put into good hands, and you don't want to just put a child or relative in charge just because they're your blood. You want to make sure, think about it. You want this this asset, this business, this legacy to continue well past the time that you pass in, and you don't want whether it's your children or a spouse to totally just squander and ruin it. So that's why even be thinking of, when it comes to a trust, doesn't have to be a relative. Okay. You can even your will. It doesn't have to be a relative. You can designate if there are certain things that you want, and my kids, I love them, but they not good with money, or they not good with business. But but I have a good friend that's been friends with me, or this friend helped me start, inspired me to start this business, or this friend gave me the startup cash that I needed, and they've been supporting me all this time. I'm thinking I want to give them some ownership in this business after I pass. So just be thinking, those are some things that you can do. And remember, like I said before, you can also designate, if you want to give to a charity, you want to leave something to a charity, or you want to set up a foundation, when you pass. Maybe you set up even a trust where the trust will be funding a foundation. There are just different things that you can do, as you broaden just your mind and thinking about the options and what's available. So the next document is the statutory durable power of attorney. Now, this is a document that what you can do is, of course, while you're still living, you can designate someone. You can give someone power to basically act on your behalf, and that in regards to signing contracts, handling maybe even some litigation, or receiving of government benefits. So it's allowing someone that has those powers to do different things that you designate. You can designate specifically what they are, certain powers, because you don't give them all power. This is not like I'm what's called I'm omnipotent. You're not giving them all power, but you can designate some powers that you're giving them, and you can designate the time frame in which, or when it becomes, when it ends, or when you can revoke, and you can also change your mind as well. You can redo those documents as well. And so we have another one called the medical power of attorney. Now, this is in regards to medical decisions. This is when you may be in a position where you're no longer able to make those medical decisions on your own. And so you have a medical power of attorney that would empower someone to make decisions. So say the doctor comes in and says, hey, we may think we need to do some surgery, or we need to do some things of this nature. That document will allow you to at least make the decisions where they were saying that they're asking of you, or where they need permissions to do that thing. Okay. The next document, these are it's kind of some of these. Well, this next one is also a medical document as well. Advanced directive. Now, the advanced directive is think about it, and in the terms of the phrases, advanced directive. You're given a directive, you're given an instruction in advance. Okay. So you were directing the hospital, doctor, medical, the clinic, whoever, that say you've been rushed to the hospital, you've had a stroke, you're now in a coma, and they're looking at you and they're like, oh, they're brain dead, or there's some type of illness where, it's terminal. This person's not coming back. Is irreversible. You've been paralyzed. There's something where you are not recovering from this. Okay. You can in advance direct what you want to happen. Do you want to be life-saving treatment? Or do you want to be just let go, let just nature take its course? Do you want them to keep you on life support? Or do you want them to take you off? So these are things you can make when there's no crisis, when you're sober minded. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm encouraging you. Because we went through this. Our dad was taken to the hospital. He had a stroke. He I think he was in the hospital, or the doctors put him in an induced coma. But he was in ICU for about 20 days. And they were asking my mom, do you want us to take him off? And the thing is, we hadn't had, I think we almost approached that conversation, but apparently it wasn't, nothing was clear, definitely nothing was written down on what his desires was. Of course, we, as knowing him, pretty much had an idea of what he wanted. But she obviously didn't feel comfortable, even as his wife. And the hospital, they're just like, look, this is this is a bed that we need other people to put in here. They're thinking about money. Not knocking the whole medical profession, but it is a business at the end of the day, folks. The hospital, it is a business. So I know they were just trying to free up that bed. But the thing is, you can save yourself. Because I'm like, the emotional trauma. Imagine being in the hospital. Your loved one is in ICU. You're hoping and praying they're going to recover. And the doctor is coming in trying to figure out, well, we about to, basically warning you, threatening you that they're about to pull the plug. And, the thing is, not necessarily saying having this document would have made the pain go away, the stress, the trauma go away. But I think it would have been easier. It would have been easier if we at least had the conversation. It would have been easier if we at least had something in writing, and not only in writing, was already in his records. Then we can hey, we already discussed this. We know what he wanted. Let's go ahead. And then in essence, we could have planned in his passing.
Shalana, I have a question. So you mentioned about having these documents and these records. Are these documents that you can, what do you mean records? Is it just like you put them in the house somewhere in your, in your personal files, or where can they be posted other than just on someone's personal documents?
Right. So these specific documents that I'm talking right now in respect of the estate planning documents, these are going to be your own personal records. So the planning place, the same place and not only that, it may even be encouraged to have it if you want to have a safe deposit box. Some people may put their will in a safe deposit box. But it's something you may want to be locked up, maybe a safe at home, especially you're talking about your will and your trust, a home that is locked up. But the thing is, you need to have it where somebody can get access to it. And also these documents, like I'm saying, in regards to the power of attorney, the make-up power, the will and the trust, if you've designated someone in these documents, you need to let them know, and you need to provide them with a copy. There's no use in having a document and then the person that you've designated to manage your affairs don't even know about it and don't even have the document. So the thing is, while you want to keep it in a safe place, you also want to ensure, now what you can do is keep it in maybe a locked container, maybe a locked box, a locked file cabinet, but then have a spare key, but let somebody know what that spare key is, okay? So you want to create some type of security, but you also want to provide accessibility with a trusted person. And then that was a good question, because then it brought me up to, I had talked about this on another time that I was being interviewed, and we talked about the usernames and passwords. We are in a day and age. I mean, I have a book of usernames and passwords. So think about all your accounts, your bank account, and even think about your bills. Just to pay your bills and those accounts. And to think about, sometimes we're just in the age of privacy and identity theft. For someone, think about it, when someone has passed, and for me to just call or someone to call and say, hey, I'm the daughter of John Smith and I'm trying to get access to, I'm trying to pay my dad's bill, or I'm trying to get access to this account. And they're like, okay, well, do you have the passcode? Do you have, what's the secret code? What's they're giving you this rundown because they're verifying. They're just doing their job. And I know it's frustrating to you, but they're just doing their job. And just the fact that you are related to the individual does not automatically give you access to these different accounts. So that's another thing too. And let me go ahead and put another reminder. Once again, this is we're talking about the Leave a Legacy Challenge 2024. And that is a challenge for you to create your estate plan before December 31st, 2024. Okay. So part of that is what I'm offering and making available is a PDF, which is an estate planning questionnaire that would allow you, in essence, to take an inventory. And that's a time where you can go through and say, okay, what all accounts do I have? Where are my username and passwords? What accounts do I have with my job? What accounts do I have personally, independently? Do I have some stock from a job I had 20 years ago? Go through your file cabinets, go through, and this might be a good time to also start requesting. The thing is, request documents while you're still alive. Go to your HR and say, hey, you know what? I think there was a form I signed, but I can't find it. Do all those things, get all those documents now and review those now. And I would encourage you to also review it on I don't know if you want to say annually, but review those documents because things change. Things may change. You might want to change some things in regards to your different designations. And so you want to have, what I guess I would encourage is creating a folder, but one of those expandable folders. It's kind of like a file folder. And what you can do is just have one of those documents, one right after the other, have your kind of your inventory list, and just create, this is my estate planning folder. And so it have all your different documents, all the different a record of your accounts, your usernames and passwords, and your different beneficiaries, and just keep them all in one place. Okay. But no, that was a great question. And so, like we're talking about, going back to the advanced directive. And so that's a document that, yes, you want to have a copy of that. You want to make sure your primary care physician, your hospital, if you go to a regular hospital, you want to make sure that they have these documents on file. Okay. And even when you switch up doctors, especially if you're in a delicate situation, if you're already battling medical issues, the thing is, more than likely, they're probably going to be asking you for some of these documents anyway, depending on the severity of your medical history and medical situation. But yeah, you want to have these documents and have them accessible. The next document is a declaration of guardianship. This is a document that, say you just become incapacitated, where you can no longer manage your affairs, you can no longer manage maybe even yourself. And this can be maybe a brain injury, or, just some paralysis, or, maybe you had a thriving business and you got an injury that you're no longer able to manage the business. And so you can't manage the payment of this and, just keeping up with things. And so you should designate someone to become basically your guardian and manage these things for you. Okay. The next one is a disposition of remains. So you can decide in advance what you want to happen to you when you pass. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be just a regular funeral? Do you want a parade? Do you want them to roll you down Main Street? You can decide what you want to happen. You can decide even with your funeral service who you want. Do you want them to do 2 minutes? Do you want them to cut out the whole 2 minutes? Do you want a certain song played? So in essence, what I'm trying to get at is that, and remember that our second training session, the very first session, we talked about how we plan for all these other major events. Think about birth. When there's a baby, the announcement, the joy, a baby. You have the baby gender reveal. You have all these things. You have the baby shower. And what are people doing? People are buying the outfits. They're buying the clothes. They're buying the stroller, buying the crib. You're buying all these items in preparation for this baby, of this birth. In the same way you prepare for birth, let's prepare for passing. Because The very fact that you were born is an absolute guarantee that you will pass. So it's part of the cycle of life. So let's prepare for it. Let's do it and enjoy and then think about it. Hey, plan your funeral. There are people that have planned their funeral, they're planned their whole, how they want to be done, where they want to be laid, what they want to have, who they want to have sing at the service. It doesn't have to be this sorrowful, took it by surprise and we're so devastated. We can't even rejoice that, in regards to the person. And so, but I think that we take the time, we think these things out. When we know we're leaving a legacy, we're passing on generation. Well, we're equipping the next generation so we don't have this restart every time a generation is born, but that they can build off. And, I think we have to be free from, there's a mentality, I'm not saying everybody has it, but there's kind of a mentality that we may have to be free from where people feel like, hey, if I struggle to get it, then you need to struggle to get it. Why? Who says that? Why? Why not give your children, whether, and it don't even have to be your direct children. It could be a niece, a nephew. It could be a kid in the neighborhood. Maybe your big brother or big sister do the big brother, big sister program. Maybe somebody in the community, in your church, that you like, you know what? I want to make sure this kid gets to go to college. I spent years trying to pay off, whatever your situation may be, or I had to work to even start to go to college, but I want to give this person a leg up. So that's what we're doing here. And so the last document, like I said, this is not the totality of, but these are pretty much the basic essential documents that should be included in estate planning. Your complete estate plan is the HIPAA form. The HIPAA form is where you're pre-authorizing doctors, hospitals to release your medical information to specific people that you designate. You're giving them authority because once again, like I said, remember, we live in an age of privacy. And then actually this HIPAA has been around for a while. So, people are not just going to be revealing medical history, medical information, your medical condition, what diagnosis, what medication you're on. So if you're in a situation when you're there, you might be under, you just had a surgery that went sideways and, there's some decisions that need to be made there. You want to have a form in place with your hospital, with your doctor, authorized, letting them know you can reveal my medical history, my medical information, my medical records to this person so they can help make some decisions on my behalf. Okay. So those are the documents that we've discussed. These are the keys to leaving that legacy, building that generational wealth. Okay. So I'm excited. I hope you are excited. I feel in a way, it almost encourages me to go out and get some more assets, to get some stuff to leave behind, to clear up some debt. So, that's the thing. We want to pass on assets without mortgages, without notes. But just imagine, if we were left with a house property that was paid for and what you could do with that, how your children, the just advantage you can give. And this life is like a race. And so the more we can arm and equip and empower the generation coming up behind us, then the quicker they can get. That's what I guess I kind of think about when I think about my kids. And the kids I haven't even had yet, but my future kids is like, oh Lord, I want them to get there faster, quicker, earlier than me. I don't want them to have to go through this long, drawn out struggling process to get things. If there is things that I can do now in my lifetime to set them up so they can focus more on fulfilling purpose. And that's another aspect. And Joanna, feel free to chime in because I know you are, we got COPE, but there's some other things that you're doing internationally. But because this is a vision and a desire of me and my husband as well, is to be philanthropic. When I think about what I would do if I didn't have to work, and, in the traditional sense of working a job, if I was debt free, what I would do and what I would focus on, the projects that I would do. And so my thing is, hey, maybe my kids will have the opportunity to do that. So it's part of this legal legacy and creating a estate planning is that element of sacrifice. I'm sacrificing, and not saying that I'm sitting here living, I'm living like we doing extreme poverty and what trying to get retired by 50. So we only, spending $5 here, $5 there. So believe me, I'm living, but I am sacrificing with them because I have a mindset of I want my kids to be able to do those things and not have to worry about a lot of the same things I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree, and I appreciate Shalonda you sharing with the focus point of legacy because this is talking about legacy building, and as you mentioned, even though our dad did not have a will, I would like to say that one that he left us as far as with faith in God, that was definitely more than any inheritance that we could have physically. However, we did have through the uh, the church, we have property
Mm.
that he purchased as a pastor in the Kansas City area. So that was something to, I kind of feel like that is part of his legacy that he
Right.
did, leave behind. And so definitely it gives us the opportunity to look at our own selves and
Mm.
when we are trying to make decisions about whether to go here or spend there, but
Yeah.
not just getting out of debt, but also, like you said, leaving a legacy. And that does include being, because this is part of what's called adulting, right?
Yeah.
When you're in your 20s and 30s, I mean, who's thinking about estate planning? I know I
Yeah.
wasn't. But, when our father got sick and ended up passing away, it took a couple of years, but I shared this, I think, on the first session that, you know, um, I did, after I had moved away from Kansas City, I kind of like restarted. I started taking better, uh, being more intentional about my health, making my doctor's appointments, making sure that, I was getting my medical, my yearly exams and just,
Mm.
getting different things. Also, I had finally did my estate planning, as we talked about. I believe I had the living trust, the durable power of attorney and the medical power of attorney.
Okay.
And I had, my sisters and I think I also may have put my nephews at the time. And of course, this was before I got married. So I met my husband and we got married a couple of years ago. And so I need to update them.
Yeah.
Um, but again, because it is based on the state that you live in, then, that's kind of hindered me a little bit. But again, that's kind of the things that people need to know and realize that, to get these things, not just have them in the back of your mind, but actually do them. And Shalonda, I wanted to kind of share some information about cost, about, I know you mentioned, I put in the chat as well, a link to your website where people can get the questionnaire. I wanted to throw out there for those who are federal employees, or if your company has access to what they call the EAP, Employee Assistance Program, then it's possible that you get a discount and through your employer for these estate planning documents. So that's, things to keep in mind that if you're concerned about, well, how much is this going to cost and things like that. And so those are some benefits that you can
Yeah.
take advantage of.
Mhm. Yes, and I work with well, one main one, what they call prepaid legal.
Oh,
One of them is Texas Legal is one of them. There's some other ones. There's a MetLife. So there's different and plans that provided. It's like legal insurance provided by their employer. And one of the main elements, I will say, one of the most common uh things that they provide are estate planning.
okay.
So, yeah, so I have a number of clients that come through that aspect. And so yeah, it's I think it's definitely worth it, definitely worth getting. And like I said, if your employer is helping you with that, of course you're paying, those premiums, but still it's one of those things. So yeah, like you said, people, they can maybe check with their employer and see if that's even something that's available and they can quickly get this done.
Right. Well, as we wrap up, we have put a wealth of information in the chat. I definitely have heard some other, as you brought up different topics as we talked about this, have thought about, some other webinars that we'll have in the future that go in line with our vision and mission of COPE, and that is like financial literacy.
Yeah.
Also, just either organizational development. You mentioned about some other things that I have going on as far as with my husband, and we have an NGO, non-governmental organization, where we send money to both Nigeria and Ghana to uh, to feed people, and then also to for medical screening, because there are some areas where they just don't have access because they're
Mhm.
so impoverished. And it's not that we have like a ton of money, but again, talking about that philanthropic
Yeah.
desire, that we just take the some money we've been putting aside, and then we do these events quarterly. So if that's something that again, our vision is to encourage and empower people. This is the vision of COPE, is to encourage and empower people to pursue their dreams, vision, and goals. So if that's something that you want to do and have been thinking about, but you're like, oh, once I get this, you can start with just $20, put your money together, and
Yeah.
that can help change, uh, a family, a community. You have to start somewhere, and that's what we're doing. We're building our faith by just starting with what we have.
Mhm.
The Bible says, if you be faithful over little, God will bless you, make you ruler over many. And so
Yeah.
I think I put two scriptures together, but anyway, it's in that
Word.
vein. And so again, we thank you for watching this webinar. Feel free to refer back to it. Go on our Facebook page, go and access the other two sessions that we did in April and March. And Shalonda's contact information is here. I'll also put a referral for if you're looking to purchase life insurance. There is a organization called World System Builders. There's a Kansas City chapter, and I put the referral here, Rick Johi, and or just even if however you have access to. We're again not getting any endorsements or anything like that, but just want to get the information out there. So again, this has been hosted by Community Outreach Partners for Empowerment. My name is Joanna Adebi. I'm the president, and Shalonda Ajibola is also one of our board members. You will be hearing more information from us. In the meantime, we encourage you to go on our website at copekcmo.org. You can also contact us at copekcmo at gmail.com, or 816. Oh, I had my mind went blank, but 816-895-2673. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you, Shalonda, for sharing this information. And we do remind people to join us in the Leave a Legacy Challenge 2024. Let's get these documents, let's get this information, have the conversations with our family members, and let's, love our family by planning
Yeah.
our legacy. So we thank you so much. Have a great rest of your weekend, and take care. We'll see you soon.